Mary, I haven't told you. Didn't know myself until tonight. But I've always known Joss wasn't his own master. There's someone else, Mary. Someone who planned the wrecks and had Joss in his power. Tonight I found out who. Mary... Aunt Patience! Aunt Patience!
Do you expect me to talk?
Good evening, hello, and welcome to episode 250 of Do You Expect Us to Talk? I'm Becca, and as always, joined by my fellow co-hosts Chris and Dave. How are you both?
Good evening, folks.
Shiver me timbers, I'm right.
Arr, Scoody.
Hang on, have I made a mistake? Why
Yeah,
are
we
you
do
doing
Pirates
a
of the
corner?
Caribbean.
Oh right. Well, I'm in Jamaica. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah. So, can you say beer can? It sounds like Jamaican saying beer can.
Was that your Jamaican accent?
No, that was just me doing a pirate
Oh,
accent.
fair enough then.
But if you say beer can,
Yeah.
as in like a can of beer,
Yeah.
it sounds like Jamaican saying bacon.
Good can. Yeah, of course it does. All right, brilliant. Well,
Oh, I
Okay.
hope we aren't cancelled.
well, no, we haven't. Audience has just shrunk a bit. That's all. Lovely.
Oh my god. Alright, anyway.
I think we have had listeners in Jamaica, so welcome.
Yes,
And,
we're always looking to increase our listenership from across the globe.
And I think a pirate stroke Cornish accent's the way to do that. What are we covering tonight, Becca?
Tonight, we are delving into a suspenseful tale of smugglers at 18th century Cornish Inn as we review Jamaica Inn.
In where?
Well, actually...
Jamaica in the Caribbean.
Jamaica what in the Caribbean?
I don't know.
a friend of mine spent a really dodgy night at a really dodgy inn. Jamaica?
Right.
No, she went of her own accord. That's a really terrible joke.
That's just pretty much what we just said,
Anyway,
isn't it?
starring in this movie is Charles Laughton, Maureen O'Hara in a debut role, Leslie Banks, who we know from The Man Who Knew Too Much, Robert Newton, who played a pirate later in his career, also starring Hay Petrie, George Curzon from Young and Innocent, Basil Radford from The Lady Vanishes, other familiar faces that we've seen in other previous films so far. We've got Wiley Watson, aka Mr. Memory from 39 Steps, as pious, I don't know what it'd be called, like gang member Salvation. Marie Alt, who was Mrs. Bunting in The Lodger, she plays the passenger with the goose or the duck, who meets Maureen O'Hara in the car. Mervyn Johns from non-Hitchcock movie Dead of Night, who we mentioned last time. And also well-known character actor Aubrey Marder as the coachman. He's a sort of Hitchcock regular and popped up a few times. The score for this film was by Eric Fenby, although there isn't really much music. This is probably one of Hitchcock's innovations for this film. Obviously, the script was based on obviously the iconic novel by Daphne du Maurier, Jamaica Inn. But the script's also written by Sidney Gillette, Joan Harrison, who I've got a bit of information about in a moment. An additional dialogue by J.B. Priestley, who, if you grew up in England and did English GCSE, you would have studied to death in The Spectacles, his famous play.
The play's pretty good. It has
Yeah, it's
been.
a really, really good play.
It turns up in, if you've got a decent sized theatre every few years, it will turn up there. And it was made into a film as well. And it's a
Definitely. I
pretty
think
good
directed
one.
by Guy Hamilton, so there's a Bond connection.
Yeah. So
Also, randomly,
it must be full of continuity errors and lazy takes.
and golden ladies in gold paint, things like that. Also, early credit. Last time we talked about Ealing, or I talked about Ealing. Director Robert Hamer, best known for Ealing films like Kind Hearts and Coronets, and also the Haunted Mirror section of Dead of Night. Started his career in 1934 as a cutting room assistant. From 1935, worked as a film editor and worked on this film, which is also co-produced by Charles Laughton. This movie was pretty much the Charles Laughton show, isn't it? I mean, Hitchcock directs but like him and Hitch really didn't get on. It's quite famous. That are kind of pretty much kind of chalk and cheese, oil and water sort of relationship. It wasn't a happy production, which I'll go into in a little bit. But
so do you think this has an effect on the film? Like, because on my view, without sort of getting into first thought, my viewing of this was like, this feels very much like what's Hitchcock's done previously. The only sort of striking difference is the more period setting.
You think this felt very Hitchcock, did you?
Well, in comparison to his work that we've seen so far in the series, if you were going to like look at what the sort of things he's done up to this point, the only difference, I would say, the striking difference would be more the period setting. But in terms of the actual job in hand, like the type of film,
are there hand jobs in it?
Yes.
Okay.
The sort of like the plot, the characters, it's like, well, if you said like this is Hitchcock, it doesn't seem out of place. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't seem like, oh, this is a bit like.
Yeah, I mean, there aren't kind of like the really obvious tropes, but there are still quite a few. I think you're definitely right, Chris. I mean, like, as I say, there aren't things kind of like sort of twisting a staircase and cameo and MacGuffin and sort of wrong man and things like that. There are some tropes there, but not usual tick list is what you would find. There are certainly some elements there for sure. But yeah, I would kind of and the period setting as well. I think this is probably one of maybe one or two period pieces he made, like Waltzes from Vienna and another film which the name escapes me. I've not actually seen, but it'll come to me later on. But yeah, it's one of like only a very few period sort of pieces that he made.
Well, I don't know. We're about to see a load of them that were made, that are set in the
that were made in the 40s and 50s.
That's a period piece, isn't it? This place.
The one that's made in 1970 something is a period piece now.
So Jamaica Inn is literally 10.1 miles from my house. All right.
Yes, Dave. What's your connection? Tell us all about it.
Absolutely none. I've been there. Well, I've driven that way many times because if there's been, if I need to get to the A30 to get further down into Cornwall, if there are particular roadworks on part of the A38 to get to it, I will cut across via Jamaica Inn and join the A30 there. So I've driven past it a number of times. I've stopped in there twice. There's a few anachronisms in this film. For example, no one in this film, there is at no point in Jamaica Inn in this film is there a shop selling Daphne du Maurier and Poldark novels. So that's inaccurate. There's also a farm shop in the real Jamaica Inn, so no one's buying any leeks or apples or anything in this film. And also, I had a lasagna when I was there. So, where
in the cafe, was it any good?
Why isn't this guy sitting down to lasagna, even though Italy didn't exist and stuff, right? So there's that. You can stay there. There's apparently, now I've been there and I didn't even notice this. There's like a smuggler's museum there.
Oh, is that? Yeah, I've never been. I've been on holiday in that part of the world before, but I've never actually been to Jamaica Inn. So. Yeah.
So I went there. What was really funny about it is if you go to TripAdvisor, I think it's TripAdvisor. I may be wrong on this. It may be out of date. Go to TripAdvisor and go back a couple of years because it's just changed hands. But the previous owner would shit talk anyone who gave the place a bad review.
Oh my God.
And it was kind of nasty. In fact, I know someone who had a friend who went there, who was a perfectly decent human being, had a bad experience there, post a less than shining review, and got talked about as though she was a freeloader and all the rest of it, and then ended up going to the local press over it. So the place was a bit dodgy, and it's sort of halfway between a bar and a restaurant now. But it does have like a little farm shop there. It does have a little sort of souvenir shop where you can buy Du Maurier and Poldark novels, just because that's this part of the world as well. And I believe, like
tourist draw.
It's a tourist draw. Yeah, it's right by the A30. So if you're coming, not if you come through Plymouth, but if you came straight from Exeter along the A30, you would pass it on the way through to like Bodmin, Truro, and other parts of Cornwall.
Is it haunted?
Well, I kept seeing this older lady when I was there, but it turned out it was my mum, so it was all right. So, no, it wasn't a wildly impressive place, and it wasn't great value for money, so I didn't go back. But I'm not trying to put anyone off the place because it's so easy to get to if you're on a certain road, because it's literally
Yeah, I
drive
just looked at
drive off the
TripAdvisor
road
and
and it's about
reviews. Do you seem to be
200-300.
like between 2-star and
Yeah.
5-star?
Go to like the 2 and 1 star reviews, and I suspect they'll be going back a little bit, and it will just be this guy shit talking anyone who said anything negative, and it just comes off as really petty and childish. But he has sold it now. But what we know is true. Given there is a museum of smuggling there, it was a well-known haunt of smugglers. So it is at least that. Daphne du Maurier, I don't want to step on your fun facts, but she wrote it after having been there, the book, although set it as a period.
Yeah, it was inspired by her stay, really, wasn't it? But then I think what
Stayed there in 1920.
what displeased her even more was basically how like Laughton and Hitch changed it all up, basically. And yeah, she wasn't happy bunny by the end of it.
Yeah, so that brings me on to sort of Charles Laughton a little bit. Again, if I apologise if I say anything, it's in your fun facts. But
No, that's fine.
Charles Laughton was known to me for a couple of things. Now, if you go and look at his filmography, there's loads in there. The Hunchback of Notre Dame, loads of stuff. I know him for 2 things, chiefly. One was one of our father's favourite films is a film from 1954 called Hobson's Choice.
It's a classic.
It's got he plays like a bootmaker in it, and he's got daughters. And John Mills, there's a very young Prunella Scales as one of the daughters, and John Mills is working there as a sort of junior.
He's really unrecognisable there, isn't he? He looks like completely different to how you'd normally expect him to look.
And he plays Hobson, who's a pretty drunk guy anyway. And it's kind of a comedy, and it's a very sweet film in a lot of ways. So I know him from that. The other thing I know him from, which a lot of people don't know, a lot of you listening to this will know, but a lot of you won't, that he directed one film ever, and it was Night of the Hunter with Robert
Yeah, that's
Mitchum.
the only film he made.
Which is a classic. Now, in terms of films that are similar to that, I must admit I prefer the original Cape Fear, but Night of the Hunter's a cracking film as well.
Yeah, check it out, because it was a different thing for Laughton to make, and it was a very different role for Mitchum as well. It's something that he was cast completely against type, but he did it really well.
Yeah, I mean, he's ostensibly decent. It turns out not to be. I mean, he's an actor that would absolutely be a star now. Not all of them would be. He's one who would, Robert Mitchum. But so yeah, that's my sort of knowledge of the cast. I don't know an awful lot about Maureen O'Hara. I'll talk about her and the performance a little bit as we go along. As for Charles Laughton and whether it affects the film, I think I can see it's causing problems, because I just thought the reveal that he was sort of ultimately the bad guy was, I think, a bit telegraphed. And then I read that was his influence. He was demanding more screen time.
Yeah.
I thought his performance was a bit over the top and a bit uneven. It's quite chilling in places. When they visit Jamaica Inn later with the police force didn't exist, but the officer.
Yeah.
Because the police wasn't invented till about proper codified police, I think, was 1839, 1841, something like that.
Yeah,
so
this is a little bit kind of precursor
little
to
bit
that, really.
pre that, but he's been sent by the under the orders of the Home Secretary to investigate this, and we'll explain all the plot in a minute. But I just think Charles Laughton is in a much bigger, camper film than this is.
Yeah, his performance is literally larger than life, isn't it? It does kind of outgrow this film for sure.
And then our other male lead, we've had weeks of Hitchcock male leads who are a little bit cheeky's completely the wrong word. You know what I mean? They're a bit like playful, and he's not at all. And this is Maureen O'Hara was not wanted for this film, but he insisted on it as a co-producer because he was a bit obsessed with her eyes, even though his sexuality in reality was a little bit all over the place.
I think there's a bit of a story there, isn't it? Because I think the way I understand it was that he kind of like Laughton kind of discovered her.
He did.
This is one of like 3 films that they would make together.
Well, he takes her with her to America.
Yeah, and obviously changes her name as well from Fitzsimmons to O'Hara. But then obviously she would go off and make films with John Ford, and obviously with Rooster Coburn, whose name I can't remember. John Wayne. They became very good friends and made 5 or 6 films with John Wayne.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically,
but at this point,
he kind of discovered her and took her to Hollywood with him, as Hitchcock did with Joan Harrison, which I'll tell you about in a minute.
But at this point, I am sort of slinking into first thoughts here, because I really do think that you asked if Charles Laughton had an effect on the film, and I was yeah. Sometimes you need to rewatch films. I didn't have that luxury with this, but I was unsettled by something. I was thinking, what's bothering me about this? And I just think it is a little bit like Charles Laughton, although a massive screen presence, seems like he belongs in a different film. So he's clearly dancing to his own tune. And
It's funny you should say that. There is an aspect to his character.
Well, yeah, you're going to say about a certain movement, I know, and I'll let you tell everybody in a bit. And I actually think, forgetting what Maureen O'Hara went on to do, if you just take this, it feels a bit like a screen debut. She's not that good in this, in my opinion. And again,
she's got the accent.
And I just think that like a lot of the characters in it just don't really resonate. I mean, the Joss Merrilin character sort of stands out because he's a bit gross in his way. The Leslie Banks guy.
Yeah, he plays up to his villainous kind of role, doesn't he?
Yeah, but then everybody else is just a body to fill a role, if you know what I mean. Not many other people stand out. And because of Charles Laughton's performance, I keep waiting for these sort of playful, almost blackly comedic elements that we've talked about in a lot of the Hitchcock films to date. And it's not really there. And in terms of tension, there's one bit of the film I find a bit tense, and I'll explain when we get there. And apart from that, I was never bored. But if you'd not told me this was a Hitchcock film, quite contrary to Chris, I don't think I would have guessed.
No, it is a bit weird, isn't it? I mean, it is very much... just to answer your question, Chris, like for me, it is very much like, because I had not seen this film very much times. It's one of my least viewed.
I must add that this is a first watch for me, and I always say with first watches, you can believe what I'm saying, but it doesn't mean I'd be saying the same thing if I'd seen it 5 times.
No, that's it. You need to kind of watch it again. So, but I kind of is. I watched it. Excuse me. Sorry. Yeah, the first time I watched it, I kind of thought, obviously, there aren't those markers there that we'd usually expect with Hitchcock. And then, excuse me. Yeah, so basically, I watched this film like first viewing, and I kind of thought, well, there aren't really that much in terms of, those sort of Hitchcock checkpoints that we know and that we'll see later on. I maybe counted like 2 or 3 of those perhaps, but then kind of like the more research I did into this film, you kind of realise that it is the Charles Laughton show, which is no bad thing. Wonderful actor, Hobson's Choice, Hunchback of Notre Dame, Henry VIII, another famous role, which is called to here. Obviously, so basically this is kind of like Hitchcock's last sort of hurrah before leaving for America. Excuse me.
Well, while Becca recovers her voice, I'll just say something quite funny, because I was trying to find a version of this to watch, and I had 2 of them in our watch later queue, because we have a YouTube account for the podcast, as you would expect, because we put videos up, and I stuck a few in there, and I started watching the colorized one just because it was first in the queue, and I thought, this looks all right, but I really think I should be watching this in black and white. So I went to another black and white one, and it's a little bit different. Some of the words at the start explaining the historical context of this place wasn't there, and then I noticed the picture quality was terrible. So then I noticed Becca had sent me a copy. So I thought, brilliant. And I put that on, and I thought, and it was crystal clear, and it was great. And I thought, I don't remember this scene. And it goes on a few seconds, and I'm like, yeah, I'm watching Rebecca by mistake. So I went back to the colour.
You're watching a different Don't Worry film.
I thought they've gone with completely different scenes. And
I don't remember Mandalay being in Jamaica.
Yeah, I thought, why this house? That looks nothing like Jamaica.
I realised that like when we come to do Rebecca, I kind of think I don't actually have it. I don't know. It's missed my.
It's on YouTube somehow. For anyone listening.
Yeah, so I found
and the version she found is good. Funny
really
enough,
good version, but it's about 2 hours long.
In my queue, but I didn't realise. Yeah.
No, sorry about that one, but yeah, it's a long ass movie. Excuse my language. But yeah, anyway, sorry about that, everybody. I had a frog in the throat. But yeah, so basically, it's the Charles Laughton show. Famously, Hitchcock and Laughton didn't really get on. This is obviously Hitchcock's last hurrah before leaving for the States. So basically, the film was produced by Mayflower. So there's a documentary on the Arrow release which you can watch. This is just a pre-seat of it. The film was produced by Mayflower Productions, which is owned by Eric Palmer and Charles Laughton. That was like their production company. He had a lot of control over this film, which really rubbed Hitchcock up the wrong way, as he liked to have a lot of control over his films, as he's famous for wanting. And yeah, obviously, he kind of made quite a lot of changes to the original novel as well, which also rubbed Demori up the wrong way. So, say, like, for example, in the film, I think the villain is ultimately revealed to be a priest, or like a false priest. It's been a while since I read it. I'm rereading it again. But it's quite dense. Which obviously, in terms of the
Do they serve lasagna in the book?
no, they don't. Unfortunately.
Fucking rubbish.
They're just disgraceful, isn't it? Just no authenticity. Just rubbish. Yeah, in terms of like what you could and couldn't do on the screen at the time, censorship and such, you couldn't have sort of members of the clergy turning out to be the villain, which is why Pengallen is a complete fabrication, really, which is why he's a kind of squire and justice of the peace. Let's have a look, see what else we've got going on here. Yeah, you sort of mentioned obviously the sort of Hitchcock kind of trademarks. Hitchcock famously quoted, you can't direct a Laughton picture, you just have to referee it. So he was kind of basically having to kind of find compromises between Laughton and his demands, like the various close-ups that he has. He wanted to do multiple takes of them to make sure they were just right, which rubbed Hitchcock up the wrong way, no end, definitely. I'd say you kind of got like the gothic atmosphere as well, which is something that we will see later on in Hitchcock's films. There's a lot of themes of like duality as well, so like between public and private persona. Pengallen, obviously, he purports to be,
a man of the law.
Man of the law, wants to live like a prince as well. Like there's a great scene where he's surrounded by all these other kind of rich friends.
Is he analogous to like a magistrate, a justice of the peace?
I wonder if he would be a sort of like local lawman of those kind of parts. Because I also think at the time, or certainly the myth around sort of Cornwall and Jamaica Inn goes that, or certainly along the coast, with all sort of the pirates and wreckers, that it was quite sort of lawless area. Like there was very much a law unto its own.
Wrecking was common. That is a talk. Having mentioned Poldark, that is a plot point in one of those books as well.
Yeah, something that's quite common.
He actually gets put up on a charge of like inciting. I don't know what the exact charge was, but it was effectively inciting wrecking, because it was just common. Although the difference in this film is they are deliberate wrecks; they are caused. Yeah,
they are deliberately do them. Then he turns out. I mean, here the suspense comes from perhaps when they're going to catch up with Pengallen, basically, rather than, obviously we're told that he's the puppet master from the very beginning. He's the one pulling the strings. Joss really isn't in charge. But I kind of think that's beside the point because his gang is so interesting. So what else have we got? All themes of like duality as well, public and private, like the Jamaica Inn itself. I've not been there. I can't really account for the geography of it, but it's kind of lots of like winding staircases.
We'll take the A30 out of it, and it's on the edge of Bodmin Moor.
If we ever go there on holiday, we'll be sure to visit because I would actually quite like to go. But yeah, I mean,
isn't there like lots of like ghost sort of theme kind of thing in Jamaica?
Yes.
Yeah, it's meant to be haunted, isn't it? Apparently. Ooh,
is it by Charles Laughton?
Yeah, probably.
He never went there, but yeah.
Haunted by the ghost of Pengallen. Make way for Pengallen. Yeah, just like that. The house of it is like the main house of it as well. Does remind me a little bit of like the Bates house, where you kind of got. I mean, you could argue that it's like the different levels of the psyche of the brain, of the mind, of the subconscious, for example. But that's for another podcast. But yeah, that's I guess again something that we'll see. And like Pengallen himself, he is a bit of a grotesque. Like I didn't realise, I was a bit slow on the uptake here, but all the makeup that he wears. Because I think I've only seen like a handful of his films. So he's got this amazing false nose that he wears, and these great big, almost Dennis Healy type eyebrows,
which aren't close enough to his eyes, and they look like they've been put on the wrong way round, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, like caterpillars that have been put on upside down.
It doesn't look right.
No, so
I make no criticism there because I think it is deliberate. I think it's exactly what you're saying. He's meant to be
if you watch that documentary by Donald Spoto, respected Hitchcock scholar, I've got quite a few of his books. But he's an interesting character all of his own. Like
I thought you said Dana Plato. I thought it was written by Kimberly from Different Strokes. Wow.
Oh, they're different strokes, different folks.
All right, go on. Sorry.
But yeah, no, his point was that basically it is meant to be quite comical, but at the same time it's also quite unsettling. But again, when you look at so like when we come to do like Uncle Charlie or Rusk from Frenzy, or indeed Norman Bates, you kind of got that duality there. Somebody who kind of has this public persona of being kind of very outward, very upstanding, dare I say, normal, if you can call Pengallen normal. When it's sort of internally as well, he's kind of got this other, duplicitous side to him, and he's quite sort of pervy. There's also shades of Scotty in Vertigo as well, like how he obsesses over Mary and wants to basically turn her like into a dog.
I thought you meant from Star Trek.
Oh no, I cannot do it, Captain. I don't have the power. But yeah, that's kind of very much like a dual nature to him. And you mentioned like to his own tune. Apparently, there's some theory that like he's got this kind of specific way that he walks, due to like this waltz that he plays in his head, which is a bit weird.
The actor we mean. The actor was writing this walk to the music in his head, not that the guy was mad and
no, that's it. But yeah, it's just that kind of thing. So there are some sort of themes there, but yeah, it's very much like what I dub very much the Laughton show. And there are some elements there. Like for example, if we just go through some of the tropes, so obviously you've got No Hitchcock Blonde, no cameo. This was the last film that Hitchcock made that didn't have a cameo in it. So there's no MacGuffin. There's a few shots of a winding staircase, and the house is kind of very up and down. There's no The Wrong Man. For the dramatic finale, an iconic landmark, there is a dramatic finale. Spoiler alert: he jumps off the top of a ship, make way for Pengallen. There are some animals, I guess. There are lots of horses and a duck, or is it a goose? I'm not too sure. And there's no character on the run, so there's kind of no
It's a different story with some of the same beats, isn't it?
Well, it is very much, but yeah, it's kind of got sort of Laughton all over it because it was produced by himself and Eric Palmer as well. But I think it's quite interesting anyway, and you kind of got that gothic atmosphere as well, which we'll see later on. And certainly when we come to next film, sort of Rebecca and the sort of the work that he did with Selznick. Sorry, my short-term memory is really poor. It's part of that cycle. We'll come to it. I'm going to reference Hitchpod. There's part of a cycle called basically like Don't Trust Your Husband type movies, where like this young ingenue woman marries a rich older man who slowly starts to drive her mad. So there's a little bit, it's kind of like a gothic run of these movies. So yeah, there are some aspects there, but I think I would kind of argue it does suffer a little bit, Chris, so I'd kind of agree, as much as I don't really want to say. But I will say I think that's pretty cool how like this film, like, it was generally treated as like a lesser Hitchcock. It wasn't really well regarded. But thanks to the 4K restoration that was done by BFI and Cohen Media, 2014, 2015, I think this is kind of, it's starting to attract a bit more like rehabilitation. Critics are starting to kind of to revisit it more and try to think, okay, well, does it deserve, sort of going up in people's ranks? So it's good that it's kind of drawn. It had a really nice restoration, looks fantastic, looks and sounds great. So I kind of, if anything, it's good that it's starting to go up in people's estimations, and that's kind of bringing more attraction to the film. So it can only be a plus. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably because, I think, because of, like, this is kind of like a transition for Hitchcock. This is like the end of an era to a different type of Hitchcock we're going to see next week for Rebecca. But also, because of, I think Hitchcock, you can correct me if wrong, he was quite vocal as well at the time. So when the director himself is like, yeah, I didn't really enjoy doing this one.
We'll encounter another film later. He definitely does that about, and it's a very well regarded one. So yeah. He did talk down his films occasionally.
He did. Well, he said that of The Man You Knew Too Much, didn't he? When he made the first one, and then he came to do the second one, because the first one was made by an amateur, and the second one was made by a professional. So he does dust his films occasionally.
But I can see why that would be like kind of, this would be like a bit considered a lesser at the time, because it's like, well, directors saying it's not that good. Can't be. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Although despite that, though, it was a hit. It was a huge hit over here in England. It was very successful, and yeah, did wonders for Charles Laughton, definitely. It was kind of box office success, but just Hitchcock really didn't like it. Yeah. Fair enough.
I think the film ends quite aptly when it says "Make way for Pemberton." Is kind of basically, you sum up the whole film with that, really, because it is kind of his film. and it's probably why you got the clash with Hitchcock, because he kind of just takes all the energy. It's all focus is on him when he's on screen.
Yes,
whereas regards to,
which makes our officer character quite bland just by association, just by the fact that the film's just not his. Yeah.
I kind of feel like obviously it's very much the Pengallen film.
It because everything else just kind of goes. I mean, from my point, for my I'm kind of a newbie to Hitchcock, and particularly like these older films. So what I said at the beginning, like, this film doesn't seem that far off from what he's done before. Some well-versed Hitchcock fans would be like just shaking in their chairs, just hear me say that. It's like, how can you possibly? But
I agree.
Just from my first casual viewer response was like, yeah, but this kind of falls kind of pretty much into it. So the only thing would be Charles Laughton is just like he's quite overbearing. It's almost. I never really got with his previous film so far that there's like a proper star where has all like all eyes go to them. Do you know what I mean?
He is kind of front and center, isn't he? He's in pretty much nearly every scene.
Yeah, whereas here,
so you can't really escape him.
Whereas here, it's like you are watching what he's doing all the time.
And if you have to give away because of this guy's presence and to justify having him in almost every scene, if you've got to give away that he's the head honcho, the bad guy earlier in the film, you end up just making the officer look stupid. Now, admittedly, that adds a little bit of tension because later in the film he's got two armed bad guys near him. Well, no, sorry, one armed bad guy and another bad guy near him that could do him harm. But the whole film is sacrificed for the tension that scene gets.
Well, it is, there's kind of there's no tension. Really? I think suspense comes from like when he's going to be found out, and just driving up to the big finale. But sorry.
No, sorry. There was a few times, admittedly, in the film where you're just thinking, why don't you just sort of get rid of him now? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, why?
No, let's walk all the way to Jamaica Inn and pretend to threaten the guy that's working for me. And then we'll go upstairs and we'll show him all the stuff we've nicked.
So I'm in a room where it's just me and the guy who I deal with directly, and the guy I need to get rid of. What should we do now? I don't know. Let's pretend this this charade then, shall we? You know what I mean? It's like it doesn't sort of make that much sense, really. Maybe it does. Maybe it's the situation's a bit more delicate. I don't know. Maybe it's like, well, you need to find the best way to get rid of him. Can't just like. But yeah, no. I think with Hitchcock, the lead actor just doesn't seem to sort of land with me.
No, I wonder what kind of relations. I don't know if that's the right word. Can be drawn like between Hitchcock and Laughton, for example, because I wonder. There's something else I think in. I've just cottoned on about 2 years later onto Foreign Correspondence podcast, which is a fantastic podcast out of Poland, and they're going through like all of Hitchcock's films, like we're not doing on the show, but going through every single, and obviously looking at it from their Eastern European perspective, which I think is fascinating. And I think they kind of say like there's some links that can be drawn like with Hitchcock and Laughton, say like obviously Hitchcock also had his TV show Hitchcock Presents, so he would kind of be the supposedly genial host who kind of draw you in, invite you in every week. But whereas I think they argue that Laughton is kind of like what Hitchcock would like to be, or how he kind of sees himself. So I wonder what connections could be drawn there, because obviously Pengallen's a kind of like this grotesque character. Obviously the same year he would literally play a grotesque Quasimodo, which again is its own kind of like romantic tragic story. But so I kind of wonder, if that's if that's maybe how Hitchcock would like to see himself, or maybe like I said, it's a, I don't know, like almost perverted version of himself almost.
Well, he did do these sort of things. The only other, I'm sure they were really common, but I can only think of a couple of examples where someone talks to camera to promote their newest film in lieu of like a trailer.
Yeah.
I've seen Bob Evans do something similar for Paramount, and he used to do that. So yeah, I did think he's the sort of genial presenter of like his craft, if you like.
Yeah, I wonder if that's sort of the way, because obviously Hitchcock was kind of, he had quite a way of like casting particular actors in particular roles, whereas here he didn't really have a say. Charles Laughton just sort of, this was pre-packaged for him really. Hitchcock just took it on, and yeah, J.B. Priestley was apparently hired by Laughton to beef up his role if he needed any more beefing to do. It was already quite beefy, which I think is amazing. But yeah, that's quite an interesting point. It's one of those ones where what went on behind the scenes is probably a bit more interesting than the film itself. I've not seen this film has been. I'm just going to go through all my fun facts. Jamaica Inn has also been adapted quite a few times in 1980s, and then again maybe like 10 years ago or thereabouts for the BBC. Unfortunately, I've not seen either, so I can't really compare and contrast. I don't know how this ranks in terms of adaptations. Listeners, if you've seen either, let us know. I don't know if you guys, have you seen either adaptation or no?
Well, there's one with Jane Seymour, isn't there?
Yeah, Jane
no,
Seymour.
that would be the 80s one. The
That's the one.
2014 one had. Hang on, it
I
did
know
have a
Jessica
name in
Brown
it.
Finley from Downton
Jessica
Abbey.
Brown Finley from Downton Abbey. That's it.
And the 80s one also had Patrick McGowan in it from The Prisoner.
Yeah.
I've not seen either, unfortunately. Because I remember at the time, like when the BBC one came out, everyone complained that they couldn't hear the dialogue because the actors were mumbling.
Right. Well, they'd
About.
obviously not heard of ADR then.
No, they hadn't. They didn't think about reading the subtitles.
Fair enough. So let me just find the 1983 version. I just want to.
Yeah, all I know is that it's got Jane Seymour, so Bond connection, and Patrick McGowan.
And Trevor Reeve. Trevor Reeve.
Oh really?
Well.
Wow!
Yeah.
I've got to check
Trevor
it out then.
Reeve.
Yeah, he's really cool. I like him.
Trevor Reeve played Jem Merlin.
Oh.
Joss was played by Patrick McGowan, and there is no character of it's back to being irreverent. So it's obviously
Pengallen. He's a complete invention for this film. I think censorship at the time.
And that was shot down here. The 80s version was shot.
Oh,
down
shot on
here.
location. Nice.
Yeah. Whereas obviously this one wasn't.
No.
I'm just seeing if the hang on a minute. Filming was split between Cornwall, Yorkshire, and Cumbria in the 2014 one. It was originally going to be shot in Northern Ireland. Basically, they just need more land, don't they?
Yeah, I was like, just make it sort of like a more moorland area. So, but I was like, what did you guys reckon to like the wreckage scenes that they were shot? Where are they shot?
To be honest, they look soundstagey to me.
Yeah, they do a little bit.
He did mix it with. We saw some sort of stock footage of sort of stormy weather, if you like, and crashing waves and so on. But it was soundstagey. Thought it was done pretty well. I mean, have we all done first thoughts? I mean, have we all done first thoughts on what we think of this film? Have we said enough? Anybody got anything else to add?
I got a bit to add about Joan Harrison, but we'll do that later on.
Chris?
Yeah, no, I'm good to go in.
Okay, the reason I say is because we probably need to give background to anyone who hasn't seen it or is just listening along. So the version of the film I watched, which was obviously Rebecca at one point, but the version of the film I watched explains, it gives you, it's like a prayer.
Yeah, it tells you about sort of the wrecking of the ships.
The
basically
prayer bring your, if you have a wreck, bring it to the poor people of Cornwall. It's a prayer,
yeah, so
and then it explains that wrecking was a thing. And what's happening here is this gang that basically meet at Jamaica Inn, which is owned by this guy. What's he called? Josh, isn't it? Is it Josh?
Josh Merlin.
Josh. Sorry, probably Josh. Yeah.
Josh Sean Connery. Yeah.
We'll explain who that is in a minute. It's an inn, as the title, so presumably there is like food and drink and everything else served there.
It's meant to be kind of like a smuggler's kind of inn, really. A smuggler's
it doesn't
really
have the feel of it feels more like a bed and breakfast than it does any kind of bar. But yeah, anyway, what they do is all of the sort of fires and lights that are set on the coast to warn shipwrecks that they're approaching land, they go out and cover them right at the last minutes as the ships are in and about to sort of hit land, basically causing the ship to wreck. They then go down, loot the ships, and kill anyone that's left over, so no one can incriminate them for anything. And then they take everything back to Jamaica Inn, split it up, but the vast majority of it goes to Sir Humphrey Pengallen, Charles Laughton's character. And the film starts with a carriage, horse and carriage, which is kind of like the taxis of the era, or the coaches, I suppose. Coaches, literally coaches.
Stagecoach almost.
Literally coaches, yeah. And they would... Maureen O'Hara's character is on her way down there. She's called Mary in this, and she's going to Jamaica Inn because her aunt lives there, and we'll find out in a moment her mother has died. It's 3 weeks on from the death, and she's still in mourning, still wearing black. But they're saying on the coach, they're saying, oh, some right dodgy people live there. Lots goes on. I wouldn't stop there if you paid me. And when she says she wants to stop there, they just literally throw her out and just throw her out fairly politely, but quickly, and get on the road. They want nothing to do with this place. And the door is answered by Joss. We've already seen a wreck. We've already seen what happens there. And Mary is just there to sort of go and relocate with her aunt, because that's the only family she's got left. And when Joss answers the door, he's not a very nice guy.
No, he's a bit
slimy.
He's a bit kind of very unkempt, dodgy looking. It plays really well for Leslie Banks, actually, because he had that injury, didn't he, from the First World War? So like if he looked one way, he could play like a romantic hero type character, but he looked the other way, and he had this horrific injury, so he could play villainous type characters.
Yeah. So Mary Ney plays Patience, the aunt. She was looking at it. I think she was in her early to mid 40s when she made this. So not a particularly old lady, but obviously a lot older than Maureen O'Hara. And what do we want to say? Because it keeps cutting back to the sort of local, the home of the Justice of the Peace. And he's a local squire. He lives in a lovely home. And
again, I think you've kind of got that kind of dichotomy between like private and public, haven't you? But you've also got the contrast between like the company that Pengallen keeps and the company that Joss kind of keeps, really. Yeah, definitely.
We've actually missed the step here because she's dropped off near the inn, but she goes straight to the home, doesn't she?
Oh yeah,
and he offers to get her a ride there on like a horse of hers. So she's already met him, but it's an opportunity to see inside the house and find that they're talking about all these wreckings.
Yeah. There's a connection between the two, because when she arrives, doesn't he kind of win a bet, or he places a bet with one of his cronies? Where it's like, who's at the door? Is it somebody ugly or somebody beautiful? Yeah. And then he wins a bet or loses a bet. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And he's basically just smitten with Mary the moment he sets eyes on her.
Yeah. And
sorry, we're going to go straight in.
No, it's all right. Where do we go from there?
This is chaotic. Sorry, this is a chaotic show. I do apologise, everybody.
To be honest, this film, for its time, looks like it's cutting back and forth dramatically. It's constantly back and forth.
Yeah, I think, to be fair as well, with obviously Robert Hamer becoming a legendary director, still very much kind of like, honing his craft here as well. There are some parts which could probably be tightened up, but as he goes on to become a legendary director in his own right, director in his own right, and sort of starts off as an editor, as very often they do.
So back at the inn, her sort of trunk gets just thrown up the stairs. And
very light trunk, not much in it.
Not much in it, but it's all very chaotic is the word, because they're sort of coming off just the aftermath of a wreck. They're not expecting this young lady to be there, and so she's overhearing things she shouldn't. They're also, why are we getting so little money here? And Joss asks around the gang, how long have you been working with me? He said, well, me, it's 2 years. Me, well, it was after I was seeing that woman in Penzance. Yeah, it's 4 years. And one guy is only 2 months. Jem Traherne.
Yeah, he's the mole.
Yeah, he's an intern.
Really obvious mole.
he's an intern. He just makes the coffee for
Yeah,
everyone.
he makes the cup of tea.
Serves the lasagna, obviously.
He serves the lasagna. Yes, he does, definitely.
So they go to hang him, and Mary cuts the rope and saves his life. And she basically helps him to escape. Now, it's a little bit hazy on how far. It's all walkable from the coast, but it is a bit of a distance, as you'll never see if you come down here. Cornwall's quite a narrow county, so it's all doable, but it'll take you a while. So everyone knows that Mary sort of knows now, because she's cut him down, got him out of there. And they have to swim for their lives. I love the way that, like, he wants to undress her.
Take off the dress, no.
And he goes, no, I'll do it. And then she takes off the dress to reveal what basically looks like another dress.
Another dress, yeah. It was also her undergarments of the day.
It was like those things Formula One drivers just wear on their helmets that they just peel off, you know? It just peel off another layer every time it gets
Wearing
wet.
another helmet underneath.
It's got about 7 fucking dresses under there.
Well, considering she's come from Ireland as well, so most likely Catholic as well, so, you've got to be modest at all times. And also considering, like, Hitchcock's, from
my wife said to me, she's
a Catholic
off,
background as
and
well.
I said, this is a 1939 film. Don't worry about it.
It would have been shocking,
Yeah, it's not, it's not going to be that, is it? But
No.
I do wonder if the Hays Code had anything to do with anything as well. People having.
Yeah, we're getting into that era as well, aren't you?
We are.
There's so many things. Like, for example,
Yeah.
there's a scene when they come upon one of the wrecks, for example, and they obviously have to go dispose of some of the crew who have survived. And there's a scene where one of them shanks somebody, and you don't see it. You just kind of see somebody edging eagerly towards with a knife, and there's a cut, and so it happens off screen. And then you just see the killer kind of like walking nonchalantly back the other way, but he's like wiping the knife on his sleeve.
Yeah.
So obviously there's a Hays Code. Yeah, you can't. There's certain things you can't show.
Absolutely. And it's like I said.
Yeah, again, that's why Pengallen's a squire and not a priest or a fake priest, even as much because of censorship.
Because of censorship, exactly that. You cannot have religious fiction shown that well. Yeah, okay. So the plot from here is actually relatively slight. They swim for their lives, and they seek the protection of Pengallen. They go there. They don't know, and I think this is where the film is slightly undermining itself. And he says, he says, here's this letter. I am sent by the Home Secretary. He doesn't say it, but it's written on there to investigate these wrecks, the numbers of them, and the fact that no one ever survives them.
Yeah, always got this note, hasn't he? He says, you're like these whiskies or these brandies or something.
Yeah,
and it's I'm a copper.
The key point is nobody survives these wrecks. You'd expect the odd survivor. That's the point. And he sort of pretends that he's gonna help them because he's from the law. And Mary rushes back to the inn to say to the aunt, look, they know something here. You've got to get out of there. And Patience is like, no, I love him.
Yeah, she doesn't want to give up Joss.
Yeah.
So she's a bit too attached to her husband. So she's in a rock and a hard place.
She is the absolute dictionary definition of thin characterization. She has one character. She has one character trait, and it's whatever her husband does is his business. Yeah. And what we find is Pengallen talks to like local contacts who are, say, businessmen or sailors themselves, or they've got stuff coming in. And
yeah,
so,
he's got a mate who's a sailor, doesn't he? He says, I'll be sailing past your house at tea time. So he's like, right, get on there.
He said, tea time, 9 p.m. I'm like,
or something like that. Not tea time, but
all
at a
right.
certain time,
No, he does. It says dinner or something, and it's like 9 p.m. It's like,
9 p.m. God.
Jesus. Going to bed with a massive pork chop on your stomach or something.
Oh, God.
Anyway, right? So, yeah, we've already...
No offence, but he is quite an outlandish character. I'm trying to be very nice here in choosing my words. But yeah.
I mean, some of it's quite well done in that we see how this plot works. We've already seen earlier how they cause the wrecks to happen. So we've already seen how Mary can stop them happening. So she goes out and relights the warning beacon. And now the gang want to kill her.
Dun, dun, dun.
Chris, thoughts?
Well, I mean, as you say, just explain the plot perfectly.
I know, but it's very difficult to find any shades of opinion in it because it's just this happens and it's all right.
I think because it's, again, to be honest, I kind of feel a bit bad because I know obviously I've kind of designed this course. Some films I left off.
Course, we're learning.
There's a course. I've designed this
This lecture series.
Yes, this lecture series. Thank you. I've got nothing new to say. Some films I've left off, but there's a whole chunk of films that I have included. This one I was going to leave off purely because of its poor reputation. But I know, Dave, you were keen to do it.
Yeah, because I live near it.
You're in the local
I knew
area.
it wasn't shot there. I don't know what I was expecting
I
other
think it was
than
partially shot there, a little bit on location.
when you live, nothing's ever been shot in Jamaica Inn, though.
Oh no,
Or outside. So that's not.
Yeah, there was actually shot on location, but kind of in the general area.
It might have been in Cornwall or something.
It was actually made at Elstree, so Bournemouth. So basically where they made
near Cornwall.
UFO.
Okay, now Elstree near Cornwall, right? Okay.
I know, the mind boggles. But no, all like the interior scenes and the wrecking scenes and things like that were actually made at Elstree. Oh my god! So, yeah.
Yeah, Elstree was best known for TV until Indiana Jones.
It was.
Sort of story, yeah. But anyway, where do we go from here? He does, so they want to kill Mary, but Joss, out of nowhere, kind of quite likes her and rescues her, and Joss gets shot in the back. And as they get back, he dies. Patience is about to tell Mary that it's Pengallen, and he shoots her. But in the interim, they've gone there. Pengallen has gone there with, what's he called, Jem, to basically quiz and search the place and quiz Joss. So first off, they're doing all that, and this is the only tense bit of the film because you think any minute they're going to turn a gun on him. But that kind of just gets overtaken by the group coming back, doesn't it?
Yeah, that sort of fizzles out a little bit, doesn't it? And it's a bit of an anticlimax almost.
So Joss dies, Patience dies, and then Pengallen ties up Mary, gags her, and then says he's going to keep her.
Yeah, he's a bit pervy. I mean,
which is weird because there's been no hint
character
of this in any of the film, and now all of a sudden he's going to take this young woman as like a hostage wife.
I kind of think there is a little bit. I mean, not sort of directly, but he's a bit of a grotesque character. I'm trying to milk it here, but
it's probably just like your cliche sort of bad guy, like I'm gonna kidnap the girl.
Yeah, you're my wife now type job.
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me actually. It just reminds me of the Joker taking Vicky Vale in the first Batman film, and they're climbing up the stairs of this church. And Jack Nicholson said to them, he said to Tim Burton, he's like, "Where are we going? Why are we going up there?" And no one could give him a decent answer. It was just
I think it's like kind of a villainous cliche, isn't it? He's kind of that's his kind of his trophy.
At least in that film, they established like he was had an obsession with her.
Yes.
So
whereas here, this is out of nowhere.
And he had a helicopter turn up, so it's like, he's got.
Yeah, it reminds me of our review of Superman 4, which was so heavily edited that he turns up and he goes, "Where's the woman?" And he doesn't know anything about this woman.
Like, what woman? What are you on about?
What are you on about? All right.
But yeah, I think there are kind of like breadcrumbs.
Say Martha.
Which one?
What is her name?
Oh my god, I can't do it.
I would love it if Batman did cough for about 15 minutes afterwards.
That
would be awesome if you went, "Rachel!" and then you just saw him in the Batcave hacking his guts up.
Like me coughing and sputtering at the start of the show. I mean, there are sort of crumbs of it. But yeah, he's not as bad as like, say, Rusk in Frenzy or like Scotty in Vertigo, sure.
Or Star Trek.
Or Star Trek even, yes, no shades of that sort of thing there. But I think, when he does kind of like first clap eyes on Mary, he does sort of like lust after her a little bit. He's always going on about like how he wants to live like a prince and he's got to maintain this outer reputation, and also like he's just shown to be generally bonkers. But as his poor butler, whose name escapes me. I watched this film last night and I still can't remember. But yeah, it's Paul Butler, and like he's always having these outraged outbursts at him, and he's like, "Don't butcher a bakery." And then he's like, "I'm really sorry about that outburst. I don't know what come after me. Oh, what happened to my grandfather? Oh, he went mad. How do I know that?" And I don't know the guy's name. So he's got this like creeping insanity to him as well. which
Well,
kind of
he has to have, but it kind of comes quite quickly.
it does. It seems concentrated towards the end
what
of the
the
film,
film
which is a bit weird.
sort of gets across is, see, a more sensibly thought through film. When he went to Jamaica Inn with the detective, it would have been frame Joss if you can. If you can frame him, hopefully, if he's not even in the room. If so, engineer some sort of problem and kill him. Basically, load it onto him. Then you collect the last wreck and you disappear to France because he says, I'm off to Saint Malo.
Yeah, I think that was his plan, wasn't it? If it all went well.
But of course, it's all been advertised now, but he's still going to France anyway.
Yeah.
And of course, Treherne, that was the funny bit of the film. And it was like, because Treherne's openly telling the villain, it reminded me of Ferrara and For Your Eyes Only.
Yes.
Recommending the chief villain to Bond, right? Our top detective is sat with the lead villain telling him everything, right?
Everything he needs to know.
And then he goes, wait, I can't remember the name, but it's something like what time's officer? He's going to get like an officer there of the
Officer Boyle. Oh, there is no Officer Boyle.
He goes, there is no Officer Boyle, and you think they tell him like.
I know that's something that that you can kind of that's really highly telegraphed as well, because like, obviously when I watched this for the first time, when they sort of mentioned, oh yes, I'll write a letter to Officer Boyle, blah 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 blah, and you could tell like there is no Officer Boyle. This is a load of bullshit,
and
basically.
at the end, the cop, he runs out, knowing he's been like.
He doesn't
completely
know.
misled, and he goes, "Well, wait and see what Officer Boyle says."
There is no Officer Boyle. There's no militia.
There's not a person watching this film with an IQ of over 50 that doesn't know that.
Again, it does kind of fall into that trope of the police. The police always being on the back foot. Which is another sort of Hitchcock trope.
He manages to make the police look fucking dumb before they're even invented.
Yeah, exactly.
That takes talent.
Well, there we are.
But yeah, so they
invented that trope.
So he runs to Pengallen's home with like a load of soldiers, and he's not there. So he heads to the harbour. I can't remember why he knows to go to the harbour, but he does. And
they're just scouring the area, aren't they? Really?
They're getting on a. He's got her on a crying on a boat, like a cruise ship, effectively of the time. And she screams. Treherne hears it, and when they have him sort of cornered, he climbs up the sort of mast of the boat, and then there is a moment. So you climb up there thinking he's going to jump off this surely, but when he gets up there, there's a moment where he realizes he's got no choice.
Yeah, I don't think that's how he didn't really plan it. It wasn't like.
I don't think he planned it.
No, I don't think he did. And then he was like, "Do you want a spectacle?" And then opposite. I mean, it's not like, for example, like Michael Tom, for example, where like his death was forever the end point, and there was no other option.
He could have used the haze code to his advantage.
He could have done it off screen.
Well, no, because what he could have done is whipped his knob out, and then everyone would have had to turn the other way, including the camera.
He'd have to look, and they go, right, I can climb down.
He could just walk off.
Easily done.
Preferably putting his knob away again, though.
Plus, there was no health and safety back in those days, so
What knobs coming out weren't regulated? Are they regulated by health and safety now?
I don't know. If you know, if knobs are regulated.
Well, I live next door to somebody who used to go when you go into like a takeaway or something and it's got 1 to 5 written on it for its cleanliness. She used to give them out, but I can't really go and ask her, could I? It looks odd if you ask a neighbour if I took my penis out. Is it a code violation?
Do you get rated a 1 or a 5?
Yeah, and she won't know what I mean. She'll just be like, "It's lovely 5," and I'm like, "No, that's not what I mean." All right.
Top marks. Oh.
Thank you. So that is Jamaica Inn. I have to say I didn't really like it. I didn't hate it either. I've got no regrets for seeing any of these. There's none of these I've hated. None of them.
No,
They've all
to be honest, I would have. I'm not blaming you, but I'm just saying I very nearly didn't.
I can see why.
It's not one that I've seen very often.
No, but I'm still glad I saw
did.
it.
I very nearly cut it, but then I thought, oh, Dave will have insight.
No, I know. I still wanted to see it because if you've got something that's a tourist attraction near you, it's worthwhile finding out why.
Yeah, definitely.
Rather than vaguely something you've never seen that's only 90-odd minutes anyway. So I've got no issues with having seen it. I think the character work is quite uneven. I think the performances are uneven. Laughton's good in his way, but he's in a different film, strangely. Maureen O'Hara at this stage is not very good. The guy playing Jem is very anonymous in the film. And it lacks for any real tension. It's quite atmospheric. I think given it was a stage and it won't have been vastly expensive, the wrecking stuff's done fairly well. It's got a bit of oomph to it that way. People are dying and being killed, and that's quite brutal. Harmless people just coming aboard after a very traumatic shipwreck, and then they're just brutally murdered. So there are positives to it. I didn't love it though. That's it from me. Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I think I enjoyed it more than you did. I think I probably enjoyed the Charles Laughton performance more.
He is a bit Marmite though, isn't he?
Yeah,
He's like Bond villains. Sometimes they're a bit much for one person.
Well, he is. He's a very outlandish Bond villain.
I did think he is a bit Bond villain because he's very bombastic.
Yes.
I mean, one of the things that I kind of picked up on, well, what I kind of gathered was he's quite one of these larger than life public figures.
Yeah. What gave it away? Was it when he launched a satellite into space to blow the ships out of the water?
To gain world domination under the sea
with a laser, yeah.
With a laser, yeah.
No, but he's quite bombastic, kind of like larger than life, and you kind of thinking, what, that guy is like a real villain, really? But so there was that element to it, but yeah, some of the plotting wasn't like particularly great, but I've seen worse, let's face it. I mean, even by today's standards, we've seen worse. So yeah, no, I mean, I think again, I think the other leading man, the officer of the law in some description, wasn't very memorable. And again, a little bit too gullible as well. But which did not help things. But yeah, no,
but he wasn't helped by his script there, was he?
No, I mean, but he got the other part, like the wrecking crew, so to speak. I mean, they were kind of memorable in their own way. They look dangerous but engaging enough.
If you take the leading man, if you take him as the leading man, I know he's not the biggest role in the film, but he's like the hero. He's there to solve it, if you like, right? If you think of the better Hitchcock films we've seen so far, and a lot of the ones we're going to see, a lot of the best sort of leading men have a hint of playfulness or humour or something in it, and he's playing the role incredibly straight and serious, and that doesn't seem to suit Hitchcock too well.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a bit of a stark contrast, really, isn't it? I mean, yeah, you got this larger-than-life Bond villain up against, completely straight.
Up against DCI Bland of the Yard.
Up against DCI Bland of the Yard. No, here's DCI Bland of the Yard. You're very right. But amazingly, he would go on, because I wondered where I'd seen him before, and he was...
Died very young.
No, he was. But Robert something, I can't remember his name. My memory is...
It's Robert Newton.
Robert Newton, that was it, yeah. I'm so sorry, everybody. My memory is terrible.
No, it's all right.
For some things. But yeah, so yeah, he basically played like Long John Silver, and sort of pirate characters for Disney later in his career, which is amazing, because I was thinking, where have I seen him before? And that's where I've seen him before. So, but yeah, here he is, very much one of probably more forgettable protagonists, unfortunately. But he was great in his later roles as pirates. Really added a lot of colour and character to his movies. But here, I think he is wasted as DCI Bland of the Yard, as you say, Dave.
So the one film he does in Cornwall is the one where he doesn't do the accent.
No, and apparently he was Cornish, like he was from Cornwall.
I'll have a look at that.
So I didn't know about that one. So that may be a fun fact. I don't know.
No, he's from Dorset.
Oh, Dorset.
No, sorry, he was born in Dorset. He grew up near Penzance.
Oh, okay.
So yes, you're right.
So he should really have an accent.
And he went to a prep school in Bude, which is the other end of Cornwall. But
I've been on holiday there. I've been on holiday in Bude. It's lovely.
Bude is very nice.
Also been to next door Bideford, which is also very beautiful.
But Bideford is in Devon.
Yes, I've been to both places.
So have I.
Very nice.
But then I'd be a bit of insular if I hadn't really.
Well, I was going to say you probably would. But both are popular holiday destinations.
Love is the wrong term because it's quite sad in its way, but he had chronic alcoholism, and he was cited as a role model by Oliver Reed and Keith Moon.
Oh God! Dear. That's a fun fact.
There you go.
Legendary. Oh gosh. Well, I think both of them. They struggle with substance abuse in their own ways, but they both had a reputation for like really holding do really well and kind of using it in performances as well. Certainly Oliver Reed for sure.
Oliver Reed was unbelievably talented.
Yeah. Oh my God, immeasurably.
He is the best, and he's the best James Bond we never had.
Speaking of
he would
that,
have been amazing.
has any of you guys seen the Assassination Bureau?
Yes.
Yes. Oh my God, it's bonkers.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he's really good in it.
Because that's got Diana Rigg and also other Bond connections. It's got like
It's got
Telly
Telly Savalas
Savalas
in it as well.
Yeah.
and loads of other like previous Bond villain actors.
It's basically like a Bond movie, but without the Eon and any other banner. So it's like the Bond film that we never had. But yeah, it's really good. It's very 60s, very 1960s.
I'd love to see a remake of that, like a modern take on it.
Barbara, if you're listening, get on it.
Hang on a minute. I'm just going to check there wasn't any sort of low-key remakes or anything.
Yeah, I don't know if there were any other adaptations. Yeah, that's been on TV a few times.
But that is Oliver Reed's kind of Bond audition, should we say?
Yeah, that was kind of like his... Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was a really good fun film.
I've not seen it in a long time, I must say. I don't remember a massive amount about it now.
I think you can buy it on DVD. I don't think it's ever had like a Blu-ray.
I'm tempted to.
I'll put it on iTunes.
You can probably pick it up cheaply, or it might be on YouTube.
Oh, I'll pick it up. Don't worry about that. That's written by Wolf Mankiewicz as well.
Yes. Yeah, all kinds of other Bond connections.
Yeah, Oliver Reed. Kurt Jurgens.
That's the one. Yep.
I have seen it, but I've completely forgotten most of the things about it. When you said the cast, I was like, yeah, but then I don't remember much else.
Yeah, it's got everybody.
Oh,
it's a bit
right.
like Casino Royale. It's literally kind of like a who's who of like 60s cinema.
It's something because the film rights are currently owned by Paramount.
Uh-huh.
Let me go to Just Watch and see if they've got a copy of it anywhere. Most people probably know this, but if you're in the UK and you go to a site called Just Watch, it tells you where everything streams.
Yeah. That's a really good website, actually. Really good resource.
Yeah, well, I only found it relatively recently. I imagine some of you have been using it for years, but I only found it not very long ago. Assassination Bureau. It's on effectively Freevee, so it's on Amazon Prime with ads. I think.
Check it out. There we go. Well worth a watch.
Hang on, watch list. How do I watch this? No, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's through one of the where you sign up to like the third party thing, like MGM or something like that.
Yeah,
all
you
right,
might
doesn't
have to
matter. Doesn't matter. Anyway, we were doing final thoughts anyway. Chris, sorry, go on.
No, I think I've pretty much it. I mean, I think I enjoyed my time with it, but yeah, I'm kind of really looking forward to where Hitchcock goes next. I'm ready for more of the Hitch that we
probably Dorset or Wiltshire.
Did he ever come to Wiltshire? I don't think so. I don't actually know. Not quite sure.
It's another investigation for our list.
Yes. Let me find out. I don't think he did. I know the Beatles did, but that's about it. I don't know what I thought of this film. It's
certainly not terrible.
It's all right. 3 out of 5. It has obviously for years it was kind of much maligned, obviously because it fell into the public domain, so you'd always have like poor copies available. And then obviously the BFI and Cohen Media Group did a stunning 4K restoration, digital restoration from the original negatives, I think. And there's a really nice release by Arrow. I don't know if it's still available. Hopefully it should be if it's not gone out of print. Highly recommend checking that out. You can buy it on Blu-ray and DVD, and a wealth of extras as well. Really, really nice restoration, and hopefully it's kind of brought it into, or it has in the last few years, 10 years ago now, brought it, into the colour of the public sphere again, and caused a bit of a rehabilitation, almost a kind of re-evaluation of critics. So, was it really as bad as what people thought? For those reasons, I very nearly left it off this list. But I thought, no, we'll give it its due. Obviously, Dave has connections as well, being in that part of the world, so that's pretty cool. But I thought, no, we'll just, it's a bit of an underdog. The same with Downhill. It's a lesser known, vehicle, but I think it's quite interesting anyway. Just for like cultural wars and that kind of at the time, and it's got this kind of well-known sort of Hitchcock cast. It's almost as if by this time he was kind of forming a almost like repertory theatre. Of kind of people that he's used before, people who are who know how to work with him. Innkeeper knows what he wants. Trying to surround himself with a lot of people that he's known before. When you're dealing with Laughton, who's a bit of an unknown quantity in that regard, who's demanding, making diva demands, requesting a lot of control over the picture. So it's good that Hitchcock can have some people in his back pocket that will kind of know where they stand. I've got a bit of information about Joan Harrison as well, if you want.
Yeah, go on.
So, yeah, this film marks the first collaboration between Hitchcock and his screenwriter, Joan Harrison. She was originally his secretary, but she literally rose through the ranks. They had a long professional career together. So basically he put an advert in the newspaper in the 30s, 33 I think it was, secretary wanted, and she applied and got the job. So she was initially a secretary after answering a newspaper advert, and Hitchcock took her to America with him as basically like as his PA, his assistant, and also as a scriptwriter. And she rose up through the ranks. In 1941 she became a scriptwriter with MGM, and then in 1943 she ended up at Universal as a producer. As a producer.
Working for Sean.
What do you then? As a producer.
I'd like you to come and be my producer.
Most money penny. And then from 1955 to 62, she produced this TV series, Alfred Hitchcock Presents. She wrote 5 Hitchcock films. This one, Jamaica Inn, Rebecca, Foreign Correspondent, which we won't be covering, Suspicion and Saboteur. Arse, excuse me. She became the first female screenwriter to be nominated for a Best Original Screenplay Oscar when the category was introduced in 1940. And she also nominated for Foreign Correspondent and Rebecca in 1941. Amazingly, which I didn't find out until recently, she was married to Eric Ambler, the famous spy author, from 1958 till 1994 when she passed away. That was just a bit of a potted history, really. There was a few years ago now, there's a really great biography by Christina Lane called Phantom Lady. That's a really great biography about Joan Harrison. I highly recommend it. Really great read. But I just think that's fantastic. Like, for all the hate that is not hate, or the kind of
hate would be way too strong.
Yeah, that's too strong a word.
It's unremarkable at worst.
All the kind of all the dislike, all the Me Too, all the cancellation that is levelled against Hitchcock. There's a lot to be said for how he did treat women. I mean, some of his leading ladies perhaps could have treated them better, certainly by today's standards. But he did a lot for like female talent, certainly in the industry at that time when it was quite scarce. Obviously, there was a female cohort, but he would really kind of champion these sort of skills, really, and the fact that they did really have quite a long relationship. She basically started off as his secretary and rose up all the way to produce his TV show. Incredible. All the while, during the kind of 40s and 50s, at a time where something like that was quite rare, really, which I think is amazing. So yeah, for all the kind of sort of Me Too stuff that is kind of levelled at him, which has been argued time and time again, there's a lot to be said for his championing of sort of like female talent as well. So a bit of both, really. I mean,
you look at the films that we've seen so far, like the more stronger characters are the female characters.
Usually.
So far.
Yeah, typically. I mean, sometimes, like these next round of films that we'll go through, there is pretty much like, it is the don't trust your husband. It's that kind of cycle. And I mean, I don't know, this is why I'm sort of keen to check out other versions of Jamaica Inn to kind of see how, because like Mary's obviously, she's quite innocent. Obviously, she is coming over as a newcomer to a new country. I mean, we're talking about on another thread, like the remake of Psycho, for example, like, and how obviously Lila's quite a strong character. She has the agency on the second half of the film, because Sam is really wooden. But just how, like, in the remake, for example, like, she's got this kind of really butch kind of exterior, but she's a bit more of a powerhouse. And how like other remakes, like female characters have actually become like a lot stronger. How like Grace Kelly, for example, in some of her films, like she's like in Rear Window, for example, she has a lot of the agency, and a lot more control as well. But I think it's quite interesting. There's another point that was brought up just while I'm on the subject. That I think it was for a correspondence, or it might be Don Swift. I can't remember. I've read quite a lot up to this film. that she's quite sort of like a voyeuristic heroine as well, which is something quite unusual. It's usually levelled at the male characters, that she's kind of always like looking through holes or looking through windows or listening through doors, to try and get information about what's going on around her. And that's something that's typically, obviously, something that is a popular theme that runs throughout Hitchcock's films, but it's typically awarded to the male characters. So that's quite interesting. Obviously, she's not doing it to derive kind of any sort of perverse pleasure or anything for it, literally just to see, what's going on about my aunt, or what's the kind of intrigue that surrounds her, really. But yeah, she does spy on people during most of the film, so I think there's a little bit of
no
subversion.
one got any discretion at all. That's
they
why
didn't.
I can't help if you stand in the same room plotting everything.
But exactly, you're going to hear it, and the walls are thin as anything, so you're going to hear everything, aren't you? So that's ridiculous. But yeah, I kind of think, yeah, in that sort of regard, especially this, they run the next films that we go into, the Selznick era, there is a bit of, like, the women do have a bit of a bad rap, and it is very much don't trust your husband, even when they're handsome, like Cary Grant, which is a great shame. So
in summary, a shocking lack of Italian food and farm shop produce.
yes, no lasagna. I want my money back, please.
Mm.
Can I
Any
have a
garlic
refund?
bread, though?
Garlic bread?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's worth.
Did you have any salad on the side?
Don't be silly. I'm a man.
Or was it that really manky?
We said salad, you
really
mean
manky
like
lasagna
bowl
that you get
chips?
that's really cold.
Yeah. Salad. Do you know those things you make with the one you can make with potato or pasta? Yeah. All right. Yeah. I do eat salad.
Deep fried in oil, yeah.
Deep
Only
fried.
when they're prepared. Only when they're prepared with them in them.
With bacon bits.
I ate them to look civilized. All right.
So
Okay.
I
You've done.
always find like going to that goes kind of like really disappointing, like buffets, like when you're on holiday, especially like English holidays. I mean, some places you go to, like the food quality is really good, but there are some places like you go to sort of one of these holiday camps and it is kind of like really, like the salad's really dry, and like the lasagna or whatever, or pasta or whatever it is, has been there for a few hours now, and it's looking a bit sad, and that's just how I kind of imagine
Buffets
it to
don't
be.
look
I'm
good
sure.
with time, do they? Yeah, time does not do them any good.
No, it doesn't. No.
If you've had poor quality buffet food, write to us at expectustotalk@gmail.com. You've done the fun facts, haven't you?
I think we've been through them, so yeah, the ones I really had.
All right.
Yeah, obviously it was the last episode before we left to America, and the last one not to have a cameo. The Restoration, Laughton.
Oh, I can't wait for Cameo to appear when they play Word Up next week.
Word up! It's the gold word. Yeah, you can still visit Jamaica Inn. And the things about the remake as well. Another point as well. Where else? Let's have a look. So yeah, cinematography of this film. There's more kind of, obviously it's a very kind of like gothic story. And it's probably kind of like the first sort of foray into gothic, which will kind of predate the other films that we visit along the way. This movie had background music only at the beginning and at the very end, so it's one of Hitchcock's innovations there. Hitchcock and Harry Stradling Jr., which is his cinematographer, gave the movie a darker look in order to make it very atmospheric. He later worked with Hitchcock in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which we might not be covering, and Suspicion, which is another Don't Trust Your Husband story, but we will be covering. But yeah, I can't really find out much else to talk about this film, really. I kind of feel like we covered it all. But as I say, this film is kind of like, it's being reevaluated by audiences and critics alike. So I'm sure new stuff will
Just
come
had a
up.
couple of really good ones as well. They can't all hit the mark. And
No,
if
this
he
is
was
it.
genuinely thinking about heading off to America, how much was his heart in this? And period pieces are not what we know him for. You know what I mean?
No, I think, yeah, he made, what was the other one? I must look it up. It was, what's Vienna, this one? Under Capricorn, that was it. Which I have not seen. And it's just, it's something that he kind of really didn't do. But he wasn't really known for that much, really, was he? It was more kind of like suspense and thrillers and stuff like that, rather than like...
I know, but he's so indelibly linked to the sort of 40s to 60s and that sort of timeless American style as well.
Yeah, exactly. This is it.
That
So
everything where they're not dressed like that just feels slightly weird.
it does, yeah. Rather like David Lean, for example, who was known for his like sweeping epics and Great Expectations and things like, classic adaptations and stuff like that. But yeah, it just seems a kind of bit of an odd bod. And as you say, Dave, I would agree that Laughton is in an entirely different film. But I am probably going to go away and watch Hobson's Choice again, because that was a classic.
It's brilliant. It's really good.
And it's also got Brenda de Banzi, who was in the remake of 39 Steps. I think she's fab. She's a really good actress.
Quick shout out here to one of our listeners. I don't know if she's listened to us apart from this series, but I believe she's listening to this series. Emily Nesbitt, who follows us on Twitter. She's actually just messaged us, but we'll answer it on here. She's just said, "Would you like me to send any favourite analyses, writings on Dial M for Murder she's found?" So that's obviously like a big thing for her, that film.
Yes, please.
So yes, please.
Yes, please, Emily. Yeah, we'll have them.
All right. So yeah, thanks for the offer. As for social media, you can find me at the Pastor Kid 1976 on Twitter.
You also just know, is it Dial M for Murder?
Yeah,
it's actually on BBC iPlayer if you live in the UK.
Yes, it is. Yes, yeah. BBC.
I had it in 3D.
In 3D, yeah. The BBC are having a bit of a Hitchcock moment at the moment. I think, obviously, due to his birthday. So they got Suspicion, Dial M, Strangers on the Train, and Psycho. And then at the weekend, if you're listening to this in say the end of August, we got Spellbound on BBC over the weekend. So yeah, all these films will be on BBC iPlayer. And also, if you're in the UK, you can check out ITVX. They've got a wealth of Hitchcock movies on there as well. We're not getting kickbacks from any of this advertisement. Just like hasten to add.
Yeah. No, it's all part of the service. So yeah, you can find me on Twitter /X on Cinematronics. You can find all the other episodes on Podbean. They're all there, so they should all connect to your podcast provider of choice. But yeah.
Yeah, you can find us on Facebook, Do Expect Us to Talk. You find us on Twitter, X, at Expect Us to Talk. On YouTube, Do Expect Us to Talk. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, Podbay. Whichever your podcatcher of choice, please don't forget to rate us, review, to like and share. Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, because we're quite a young up-and-coming podcast.
Nearly 10 years old now.
It's not been 10 years, is it?
No, it's been 9 years next week.
It's been 9 years, so but coming soon.
9 years next week.
Jesus, God.
I know, oh my God. What we're going to do, we're going to have to do something, aren't we?
I feel old now.
Well, there's a reason for that, Chris. We all are now, you know.
Yes, we've hit double digits.
When I look back to the golden years where I grabbed the zeitgeist at, nearly 40, it's a shame to be getting
And that's
old.
me hitting the big 40 this year.
I don't really care. I'll do these till I'm in a fucking box if I can speak.
Oh no, don't leave us just yet, please.
Right. Okay.
Just think so. It's 9 years, or approximately 9 years from white wine spritzer.
White wine
spritzer.
I wanked off, not finger. White wine spritzer, please.
God.
Yes, and she specifically requested our whites. Yeah. We could do a bullet point of completely context-free jokes that we can remember the punchline to, which is pretty good, actually. Yeah. Oh, couldn't she just dance with an otter?
Buckaroo.
Buckaroo. Yeah, and the trouble is, I've seen other jokes about Casino Royale along those lines, and they're never funny because they don't use the word buckaroo.
Buckaroo's hilarious.
That's the funniest thing Chris has ever fucking said.
Yes. Your joke will forever go down in history for buckaroo.
Yeah. And he did it the slightly Rowan Atkinson way of really overemphasizing.
Well, things it does help because you're doing like kind of Bond villain, kind of like.
Bond.
Should we make things more interesting?
Yeah.
Buckaroo.
Yeah. So, anyway, 9 years. See, I remember saying in an early episode, Halle Berry's going to be 50 next year. Well, she's 58 now. So, yeah, it's moving on. All right, folks. Have you done your bit, Becca, for where we are?
Where you can find us. So yes, I think we have. Yeah, you can find us on all good podcatchers. You can support us in any one of 3 methods, really. Listening to us, thank you. Subscribing to us, thank you. And leaving a 5-star review on whichever platform you listen to us on. Thank you so much.
So next week we're going to visit the film that I spoiled myself with the first 8 seconds of today before I realised I'd opened the wrong film, which means Becca.
Which means we jump to going to Mandalay again with Rebecca.